So, let me ask you something. How do you feel about N64 games? Well, if you're unfamiliar, let me show you something kind of rad. We all know what emulation is, right? Well, what if I told you that eventually emulation might be a thing of the past? And no, that's not hyperbole. This is very much a possibility. Just take a look at this. That's right, Majora's Mask running on a Nintendo Switch. Now, if you're a reasonable person, you'll take a look at this and think I'm diving off the deep end. Clearly, this is emulation, and you would be correct. Nintendo emulates the N64 for their Nintendo Switch Online service. And honestly, there's not really anything wrong with that. Most of you out there are more than likely pretty familiar with emulation and, well, that whole rabbit hole. I mean, Nintendo is in the news more often than not when it comes to emulation and, well, anything else of that sort. Mostly, emulation has served as the go-to for about as long as I can remember for a lot of these older games and how some people currently play them. There really isn't any other way to port older titles outside of having to emulate them. And that is until about now-ish. Let me show you what Majora's Mask could look like if it were to say, I don't know, run on your PC as a native program rather than an emulated one. This is the Zelda 64 Recomp, and it's breaking some new ground. Well, new for the Nintendo 64, anyway. So let's break it down real quick. A recompilation, for those of you that may not know, is a new-ish kind of way to break down and rebuild a game pretty much from the ground up. If you're familiar with some of the other work out there, there's some other things that are pretty similar, and you may have heard of them. They're called decompilations. From what I can gather, a decompilation is a years-long process that sees a group or individuals who are incredibly talented programmers breaking down a game's code by hand and then rebuilding it by hand. A very labor-intensive task, especially since most of the code looks like strings of nonsense. I mean, ADDIU $R4, $R4, 0x20. I mean, that doesn't look like any current code that I've ever seen, but then again, I'm not a programmer. So to try and manually take these things apart and then update it to current coding standards, yikes. That's just a touch out of my wheelhouse for sure. Keep it up, guys. You're doing great work. But yeah, that's essentially what a recompiler does. It breaks apart all that jumbled up code and translates it somewhat to modern standards in a much shorter amount of time. It should be noted, though, that the only reason this works at all is because so many people have already done these decompilations and provided the necessary legwork and code translations that make recompilation work as smooth as it does. So I imagine now you might be asking, how? How can this be a thing? Well, the team, headed by one Mr. Wise Guy, can legally do this because they don't give you the game. You'll have to provide your own copy, assuming, of course, you have Majora's Mask and or a ROM kicking around. All you need to do is download the Zelda Recomp for either Windows or Linux. You can even get it to run on a Steam Deck if you want, and feed it the ROM. The program will do the rest, and then you get met with this screen. This is Majora's Mask running on your PC, as if it were just something you can download off of like Steam or, you know, good old games or whatever. No emulation at all. It's all fully customizable and ready to be played by any computer in this modern age. Seriously, the system requirements might as well list a potato. I feel like this thing could run on almost any piece of hardware newer than like 2010. Anyway, I should note that it only really works currently for Majora's Mask and eventually soon, hopefully, Ocarina of Time. There is a version of the N64 Recomp that, if you know what you're doing, you could use to make any other N64 game run on your PC. But you're going to have to figure that one out on your own. You're going to need your own coding tool like Visual Studio or whatever other program you might want to use. It's doable, 100%, but I'm not capable of doing that. Not without a serious headache and a longing for my own demise. If you're clever enough and have an eye for this kind of thing, then I wish you the best of luck. This leaves us with the Zelda Recomp, a dedicated and easy way to play the N64 Zelda titles with little to no problems. Not only does it make the game look and play about as smooth as possible, but it keeps all the effects, both sound and visual, intact. It doesn't sound off or like it has some kind of filter or anything like that. I mean, just take a listen to these two and compare the Nintendo Switch Online and this PC version of Majora's Mask, and tell me that that PC doesn't sound crisp. You can play at any frame rate you want. The game targets whatever your monitor's refresh rate is, but you can slow that all the way back down to the original 24 frames a second if you want. You can even get ultra-wide support, camera control using the left stick, gyro aim if you want that, about as instant a load time as you could ever imagine. I mean, it was already pretty fast because it was a cartridge game, but hey, if you have an SSD, it could be even faster now. And possibly the best thing ever, autosaves. No more owl statues or Song of Time saves. Just, it saves in the background. What a great feature to add. There really isn't any better way to play this game currently. I mean, sure, if you want it to look better, you always have the 3DS remakes, and those are all well and good, but they come with their own slate of problems. What is neat about the Recomp, though, is because this thing is being consistently worked on, and they do eventually plan to add Ocarina of Time and other things like that, you do have the option to upload texture packs, mods, randomizers, and even model replacements. And if you're real bold, you can add ray tracing, which is kind of wild to think about. So, hopefully, sometime soon, I imagine you can load up the PC version, pop in some models from the 3DS remake or custom ones if you have the time, and up the textures to current standards, and basically toss in anything else you might want. The ability to do it all will be right there, since this program makes things like that about as easy as it gets. I look forward to seeing what is coming down the pipeline for this, as, well, the N64 and its library of games could use a bit of love. Now, I've played just the opening bits here on both the Switch and the PC version, so let's do a little bit of the compare and contrast here. Then we'll see exactly what we're dealing with, yeah? So, yeah, get out there and give this thing a try. Worst case scenario is you have a bit of time traveling through Termina at a smooth frame rate. Best case scenario, you have a bunch of fun remembering and playing a classic. And really, that's kind of it for the Zelda Recomp. I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, and anybody who's maybe a little more technical than I am can give you 100% way better deep dive onto like what actually is going on here, but I don't know. I felt like this was kind of neat and worth sharing. So if you are a fan of the N64, or specifically in this case, Majora's Mask, I cannot stress this enough. You should do this when you have an opportunity. And hopefully, with any luck, this will continue to be a thing that thrives and helps bring back some of the more forgotten titles out there on the N64 library. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. If you want to see more things Legend of Zelda related, I got stuff up here. Yeah, let's say up here. And if it's not here, then it's probably over here. Either way, y'all have a good one. I'll catch you next time. Keep it clean out there.